In the stillness of the night, laughter echoed from the second-floor room, where Zara and her friends were throwing a bachelorette party before the wedding. Zara's voice cut through the air like a cold blade. "That guy is just a sponsor. The one I really love is waiting for me in Abuja." The whole group burst into laughter. Outside the door, Kwame stood frozen, his hand clenched tightly around the key to the Rolls-Royce, the surprise gift he had prepared for her. What will the young man do in the face of such a betrayal? Join us as we uncover the hidden truth behind this story, and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. Kwame was born amidst dust and the sound of exploding mines. His village sat right next to an illegal coal mine, where children had to learn to recognize dangerous rock veins long before they ever learned the alphabet. His mother died when he was 4. His father, a miner who had broken his leg in a cave-in, survived on alcohol and anger. By the time he was 6, Kwame was the one putting food on the table, crawling through the shafts like a little bat, scraping out chunks of black coal to trade for a few yams or a handful of rice. He was a small boy, but his eyes sparkled in a strange, brilliant way. He not only memorized every twist and turn of the tunnels, but could also calculate blast timing, locate where echoes bounced from, and knew exactly where it was safe to hide. One time, noticing cracks forming in the tunnel ceiling, Kwame shouted and pulled 2 other children out of the area. Just 5 minutes later, the rocks collapsed, burying a cart full of coal. Word of "the boy who saved lives" spread beyond the mine and reached the ears of an old Yoruba engineer named Mr. Adikunle. The man came all the way to see Kwame and quietly observed him at work. Seeing the boy sketching a map of the mine on stone using chalk and dirt, he was amazed. "How do you know how to draw like that?" "I just look. Remember. Then draw," Kwame replied, without even looking up. "Do you want to learn? I mean really learn?" Kwame looked up, disbelief in his eyes. "If I learn, will I get to eat?" The old man laughed heartily. "Yes. And you'll eat well." So Kwame followed him to the city. Mr. Adikunle enrolled him in a technical training center for underprivileged children. In the beginning, Kwame hid food under his pillow, and always jumped up at loud noises, ready to run. But slowly, he began to believe there was a world beyond the underground. He studied electricity, mechanics, mining, and even computer programming. Every math problem became a new coal seam. Every technical drawing, a dust-free tunnel. Kwame studied day and night. He didn't want to become rich. He just didn't want kids like him to die in the dark anymore. 10 years later, Kwame became the youngest mining engineer in Kogi State. At a regional technical conference, he stood before 100 people and presented his low-cost mining equipment project for rural communities, built using the same materials he once used to draw mine maps, dirt and crushed coal. He ended his presentation with one line. "I'm not bringing technology, I'm bringing opportunity. So that kids like I once was won't have to die in the dark." Kwame's project, named Light Beneath the Earth, quickly gained traction. He received funding from NGOs and partnership offers from neighboring provinces. But he didn't rush to expand. Instead, Kwame returned to his village and built a small workshop right beside the old mine, the very place where he was once nearly buried alive. He invited unemployed youth to apprentice there, dividing them into groups to train both in hands-on skills and theoretical knowledge. His foster mother, Mrs. Abigail, the wife of the old engineer, handled the meals and housing for the trainees. She often said, "Kwame didn't just save your lives, he saved this village's future." 3 years later, Kwame founded a company, Earthpulse Tech. Its mission wasn't to maximize profit, but to design low-cost, easy-to-repair equipment that could be used by people without formal technical education. Every drill and ventilation system was built as if he himself would be the one using it in the dark. However, the media and business world saw something else, a young man, from poverty, who had built a socially conscious business model that actually turned a profit. They began calling him the underground billionaire. Kwame didn't care for titles. He rejected many investment offers because he didn't want his company's shares to be owned by people who only knew how to count money. But with success came new challenges. The local authorities started pressuring him, demanding a cut of the profits or trying to appoint their associates as managers. Kwame refused. Suddenly, inspections started. Audits. The workshop's electricity was cut without reason. He wasn't afraid. His team, once coal dust-covered kids, now engineers and team leaders, worked together to adapt. They powered the workshop with solar energy and even developed a cheap battery made from recycled coal. Once, at a Youth Entrepreneur Award ceremony, when Kwame was handed a certificate of recognition, he stepped onto the stage and smiled softly. "I don't need to be called a billionaire. All I need is to see those kids, once called useless, now building machines, constructing kilns, and feeding their families. That's enough." The hall was silent. Then it erupted into applause. But among the crowd, one pair of eyes watched him intently, sharp, cold, and hiding something. Her name was Zara, a brilliant environmental engineer from Abuja. And from that moment, their meeting was destined to become the greatest turning point in Kwame's life. Zara came from Abuja, a brilliant environmental engineer with an impressive academic record. She worked for an international organization that monitored environmentally friendly mining projects. When she heard about EarthPulse Tech, she volunteered to travel all the way to the village to personally assess the much-praised model. Kwame first saw her at the awards conference that day. She didn't approach him right away. Instead, she quietly gathered information. A few days later, she arrived at the workshop in a dusty pickup truck, carrying a notebook filled with scribbled observations. "I'm Zara," she said. "I want to learn about you, not as a journalist or investor, but as someone who works with her own hands." From that day on, Zara became a regular presence on site, often beyond the scope of her actual assignment. Kwame had felt a quiet admiration for her from the very first moment. He gave her a full tour of the workshop, introducing each machine, and explained how they built devices using industrial waste, recycled coal, and even aluminum from old soda cans. After one of their work sessions, Kwame invited Zara to dinner at a high-end restaurant in the city center, along with a bouquet of flowers and a gold bracelet. Zara was surprised and delighted. Every evening after work, Zara would message Kwame, sharing thoughts about the day, a mistreated worker at the site, a new project in development, or just small moments she noticed. Kwame always listened. And for the first time in his life, he felt a strange calm settle in his heart when he was near someone. Their romantic dinners became more frequent, always lavish. There were luxury perfumes, designer bags, limited edition watches, even private jet trips to exclusive resorts. Kwame always prioritized Zara above all else. One night under a bright full moon, as Zara reviewed a new ventilation system design, Kwame picked up the scarf she often wore and asked gently, "Zara, if one day you had to choose between me and the whole world, what would you choose?" She looked up, her eyes slow and steady. "If the world didn't need you, then I would become your world." Kwame didn't say a word, he just smiled. But deep inside, something had taken root. And he, the man who once believed he belonged only to the darkness, now began to believe in the light that lives within another's heart. Everything unfolded like a dream. After 3 months of working and living with Kwame, Zara accepted his proposal during an intimate dinner surrounded by candlelight and blooming flowers in his private garden villa. The media hailed their engagement as the perfect union of intellect and heart. They became the model couple for the sustainable development sector. But Abigail, Kwame's foster mother, had spoken to her son several times about Zara, especially after sharing meals with her at home. "A woman seasoned by life's storms," she told him quietly. "I don't see honesty in that girl's eyes. When she looks at you, when she looks around our home, her eyes don't see love, they see ownership." Kwame brushed it off, believing his mother was being too harsh. Their wedding was planned for the end of the month, and the entire village had begun preparations early. Abigail took charge of the organizing. Children practiced traditional songs, and the workshop apprentices handcrafted the wedding gate from scrap metal, painting it green, the color of life. Kwame didn't want a grand ceremony, but he still took care of every detail. He personally selected wildflower bouquets, sketched the seating plan so no guest would be forgotten, and spent an evening carving a wooden sign that read, "We walk together, from earth to sky." He had also planned a surprise for Zara, a brand new, bright orange Rolls-Royce he had chosen himself as a wedding gift. That evening, the car was delivered. Kwame, filled with joy, drove straight to Zara's house to hand her the key. He climbed the stairs to her room, just as she and her friends were celebrating her bachelorette party. Through the closed door, laughter echoed. Zara's voice rang out, cold and confident. "After tonight, I start a new chapter. Everything will be in my hands." "Love? That guy? He's short, with a face like a demon. I already have a real man to love, tall, ripped abs, gorgeous." "Kwame? He's just a sponsor." One friend gasped, "You're such a smart and practical girl." The room burst into even louder laughter. They didn't know Kwame was standing just outside, hands still gripping the car key, his legs weak, his face drained of color. He turned, trembling, and descended the stairs. His feet carried him out to the car where Rachel, his best friend and groomsman, was waiting. Seeing Kwame walk out like a ghost, Rachel quickly asked, "What happened, man?" Kwame, eyes hollow as if he'd watched his entire world collapse, murmured, "Take me home." The next morning, he met with Abigail and said simply, "I want to transfer the entire company to your name. I'll stay on as an employee, like before." He called his lawyer and demanded all paperwork be completed by noon. "No trace of my name on anything," he said. "No assets. No bank accounts. No real estate. No company shares." The lawyer was stunned, but quickly moved to finalize the paperwork. The wedding was as dazzling as a dream. Zara, dressed in an ivory-white gown, beamed radiantly beside the groom, the man she believed was now fully under her control. The entire village attended the celebration, with hundreds raising glasses in joy. Media outlets flooded in to report on the golden marriage of heart and technology. But only Kwame knew, all of it had already turned to dust in his heart. He didn't cancel the wedding. He let Zara have the day she'd always wanted, a grand stage where she could shine, where she believed she had won. Yet, inside, Kwame had already rewritten everything, every clause in the contracts, every title of ownership, every asset, none of it bore his name anymore. 2 days later, he drove to visit Mama Abigail. Her face lit up in surprise. "No honeymoon, my son?" Kwame quietly sat down. His voice was calm but resolute. "Mom, maybe you saw something I didn't want to believe. Sometimes love is just a pretty name for something else. I went through the deepest darkness to find the light, only to hand it to someone who didn't deserve it. I want to start over, from where I once stood, with nothing but faith and the little self-respect I have left." Mama Abigail said nothing. She only gave his hand a gentle squeeze, one that said more than forgiveness ever could. That evening, Kwame sent a short email to the board of directors and all employees of Earthpulse Tech. "As of today, I am just a regular engineer. The company will now be led by Mrs. Abigail. I hope you continue working, not for a name, but for the reason we all started, so that no one ever has to live and die in darkness again." Zara found out the truth the next day when she went to the bank to authorize a large transfer. Transaction denied. All accounts frozen. She frantically called the lawyer. Then the CFO. Finally, she tried calling Kwame. He didn't answer. The following day, when she showed up at Mama Abigail's house, she was greeted only by a short message hanging on the gate. "What is not nurtured with sincerity will fall, just like leaves in the dry season." That year, the rainy season came early. Water poured down from the mountain slopes and flooded the stream beside the village. Kwame's workshop, though built strong, had to halt operations for a week for repairs and reinforcement. The entire team of technicians and apprentices threw themselves into the work with a strange kind of energy, as if they weren't just protecting machines, but guarding something much deeper. Ao was always the last to sleep and the first to rise. Though she rarely spoke, she always seemed to know exactly what was needed, who required help, which machine was about to break, where to add an extra bolt. Kwame watched her and felt something he'd never experienced before, not even at the height of his career. Peace. One morning, Ao handed him a slip of paper. I want to open a vocational class for girls who dropped out of school. Can I have a corner of the workshop? Kwame nodded without hesitation. They began building the curriculum together, gathering tools, seeking support from charitable groups. The project, Little Hands, was born, and in just 6 months, it had trained over 30 girls aged 10 to 16. At the opening ceremony, Kwame stood before the students, voice choked with emotion. Back then, I believed I alone could change the world. But now I know, it takes a whole community. And sometimes, that change begins with someone who doesn't speak, but acts. After the event, when the crowd had gone, Ao pulled Kwame toward the old mine shaft. She turned on a small flashlight and aimed it at the rock wall where they had first met. There, she had carved a message with the tip of a screwdriver. Thank you for not running from the dark. Kwame looked at the words, then looked at Ao. He didn't say a word. He simply took her hand, and held it tight. A month later, they received the news, Ao was pregnant. The news spread through the village like a cool summer breeze. The elders gave their blessings. Children danced. The workshop workers dumped bananas and flour onto the tables to bake celebration cakes. Kwame sat on the wooden steps, hand in hand with Ao, heart overflowing with joy. From a boy who once crawled out of the earth's belly to a man who walked in the light of true love, his journey had never been paved with gold. It was built by calloused hands, kind eyes, and a heart that had never stopped beating for others. And the old mine, once a place of tears, now glowed with light. With love. With hope. And with humanity. If you believe that light can be born from the darkest places, and that kindness still exists in this world, please like the video and subscribe to our channel to help us share more stories that touch the heart. Sparkle's Yellow Heart. You are a part of this journey.